When we think of cartoons, we usually think of the happy memories of our childhood. We are used to seeing an animated world where there is a hero who is the good guy and the villain who is the bad guy who tries to ruin everything. Good guys always win and everything ends up good in the end. But sometimes the bad guys have a change of heart and end up becoming good. Today we will be looking at some of those instances. Before we get started, be sure to head on over and click that subscribe button to stay up to date with our latest videos. But first, can you guess what feature film these emoji are showing? Find out at the end of this video.
No,
Wreck-It Ralph. In video games, there is usually a clear-cut hero and villain, but when the story starts over and over and over again, it can get exhausting, especially when you're the villain and your job is to get beat up or defeated. So what if the bad guy gets tired of being the bad guy? That is the premise in Wreck-It Ralph. The antagonist is an 8-bit character in a 1980s arcade game who decides to prove there is much more to him than being a bad guy. His sole job has to wreck things in the game Fix-It Felix Jr. He struggles to open up at his bad and non-support group.
We've all felt what you're feeling, and we've come to terms with it.
really?
He goes through different games to try and find a purpose and become a hero. He botches stuff in Hero's Duty, contaminates Sugar Rush with Cybugs, and ruins his first friendship ever. In his journey, he actually tries to help others out, and in the end, he rejects his selfish desires. In an act of heroism, he sacrifices himself by creating an explosion of Mentos and Diet Cola to wipe out the Cybugs. He ends up doing the same thing he was originally programmed to do, destroy. Except now, he has new friends and learns that being yourself is great too, which makes him more of a hero than anyone else. Despicable Me. You can't hear this title without thinking of those adorable little yellow minions. And of course, the phrase,
"He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die."
there is cuteness written all over the franchise, the characters, and in the plot. The story follows supervillain Gru, voiced by Steve Carell, who hatches a plan to commit the biggest heist in all of history. He plans to steal the moon. You can't get much more evil than that, right? He wants to outdo young villain Vector.
You done been shrunk.
He tries to steal the shrink ray from Vector's lab, but it's a fortress. He's got an arsenal of weapons to choose from like freeze rays and an array of battle-ready vehicles, none of which work. He notices 3 orphaned little girls enter the lair to sell cookies to Vector. He then adopts them so he could use them to build the shrink ray. He plans to leave them at the amusement park he takes them to, but ends up having fun and enjoying the role of a dad. His cohort, Dr. Nefario, sees them as a distraction and has them sent back to the orphanage. Vector ends up kidnapping them in order to get the moon Gru stole. Gru ends up saving the girls and settling down as a happy family. Sweetest villain ever.
I want whatever he dares to serve me. Tell him to hit me with his best shot.
Ratatouille. This charming film follows a rat, Remy, who dreams of becoming a world-renowned chef. He idolizes Chef Gusteau's belief that
Anyone can cook, but only the fearless can be great.
the villain of the film is a famous food critic named Anton Ego. He wrote a harsh review of Chef Gusteau's restaurant, which caused the 5-star restaurant to lose one of its stars. Gusteau mysteriously passed afterward. When he hears of Gusteau's popularity rising, with Remy as the secret chef, he challenges the restaurant to deliver the best of what they've got. Remy decides to serve a simple dish, ratatouille, which ends up being so brilliant and perfect it returns Ego to childhood memories of his mother's cooking. He even tears up and requests to see the chef. He has to wait until closing time. It is revealed that Remy the rat was the chef. He thinks it's a joke, but realizes the truth, thanks them, and leaves. He writes an awesome review for the restaurant and for Remy. He finally understood what Gusteau meant, and that is while not everyone can be a great artist can come from anywhere. Great change of heart, but this ended up costing him his reputation and job as it is discovered he is endorsing a rat-infested restaurant. The restaurant shuts down, but Ego invests in Remy's new restaurant and lives happily. The Little Mermaid. When you're a teenager, it sometimes feels like the world is against you. Hey, we get it. You're too old to be called a kid, but not technically a legal adult.
How was school?
Worst day of my life? What do you think?
It can be a rough time, especially when your parents don't let you do what you want. They actually mean well, but when you're young, sometimes it seems like they're the bad guys. Trust us, they're not. These feelings are no exception under the sea. Young Ariel is a mermaid who dreams of being a part of the surface world. Despite her father's warning of the dangers that come with the human world, she doesn't listen. Her desire to be part of this new world is heightened when she sees and rescues Prince Eric from a shipwreck. Ah, young love. Well, her father finds out she's been exploring the surface world and flips out on her. He goes so far as to lose it and blast all of her collection of human stuff. Not the dingle hoppers. We see regret in his eyes, but the damage is done. He's a villain in her eyes. surprise. She makes a deal with Ursula, puts her loved ones in danger, but ends up getting what she wants. Triton ends up being a supportive dad in the end and supports his daughter's choice.
Yes, he's good. I can tell.
LILO and Stitch. Experiment 626 was designed to be unstoppable and indestructible. He is fireproof, bulletproof, and can think faster than the best supercomputer. His sole purpose and the reason he was created was to destroy everything in his path. He can lift objects 3,000 times his size and can see in the dark. Sounds like a pretty lethal creature, doesn't he? He starts off as a troublesome little guy, especially for LILO and Nani, who adopted him thinking he was a strange-looking puppy. Can you blame them though? He's pretty darn cute and fluffy. He wreaks havoc into their lives, physically destroying things around their home and around them. But we see him begin to change and develop feelings and a sense of wanting to belong. This all comes in handy when LILO is kidnapped by Gantu, and Stitch does a total 180 and saves the day. Sure, it takes some time for the evilness to wear down, but luckily he was able to change. He learns what it is like to have the love of a family and what it means to look out for each other. And most importantly, that Ohana means family, and family means nobody gets left behind.
Let us hear its psychic powers.
Psychic powers?
Mewtwo. Do you want to be the very best like no one ever was? We know you're probably singing the rest of the song now and reminiscing about the good old days where you went on 8-bit adventures to catch Pokemon on your Game Boy. At the height of Pokemon popularity, there was a movie released. Pokemon, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back. Wow, that's a mouthful. The plot centers around scientists who try and clone the greatest and most powerful Pokemon of all, Mew. Their cloning experiments result in the birth of Mewtwo, which ends up spelling disaster for them. He is infuriated that he is seen as nothing more than an experiment and a weapon, so he destroys the lab by unleashing his psychic powers and plots revenge against humanity. Mewtwo rebuilds the lab and invites trainers to battle the world's greatest Pokemon trainer. Ash, Misty, and Brock end up on New Island and find out that Mewtwo wants to destroy humanity. An epic battle between original Pokemon and cloned Pokemon ensues. Ash ends up putting himself between a blast caused by Mewtwo and a Mew's fighting and becomes petrified. Mewtwo is touched by a sacrifice and realizes that he shouldn't have judged his origin, but instead focus on his choices in life.
Can we trust you with that, Diego?
Let's go!
Ice Age. Ice Age was a great animated film that showed us compassion and humanity, even though it mostly centered around animals. It showed us that, for lack of better phrasing, animals have feelings as well. As the title states, it takes place in the Ice Age. What made it endearing were the characters Manny the Mammoth, Sid the Sloth, Diego the Saber-toothed Tiger, and of course, Scrat, the acorn-crazed squirrel. Let's not forget the adorable human baby which brings these unlikely friends together. All animals begin to head south because it's getting colder. Sid gets left behind and comes across Manny, who is traveling north and decides to follow him. A human camp is attacked by saber-tooths, and a woman takes her baby and jumps into the river. In her last breaths, she pushes the baby towards the shore, where Manny and Sid decide to return the baby to his family. Initially, Diego that saber-tooth was a remorseless and cunning hunter in a pack that attacked the humans. He was tasked with delivering the baby to his pack leader Soto as revenge on the humans.
An eye for an eye. Don't you think?
But by the end of the movie, he ends up saving everyone, even fighting off his old pack and sacrificing himself to save Manny. Don't worry, he survives in the end.
Ask me how I'm going to do it. Go on!
MEGAMIND. In a world saturated with superhero movies, it's nice to have a refreshing twist every once in a while. How about focusing on the villain once every now and then? The filmmakers behind MEGAMIND embraced the superhero genre but gave it an awesome twist and put the hero's arch-enemy in the limelight. Voiced by comedic genius Will Ferrell,
Hello?
It's hello.
Oh. Hello?
MEGAMIND is a character who, as a baby, was sent away from his home planet in a pod just before it was destroyed, sort of like Superman. But another pod was dispatched at the same time, that one containing Metro Man, his arch nemesis. His lands in a home of privilege, and MEGAMIND lands in a prison. So MEGAMIND's intelligence, coupled with awkwardness and the ability to be good at being bad, make him into a supervillain. After a few of their battles and MEGAMIND losing, he finally develops a weapon to defeat Metro Man. Afterwards, he feels empty, and so he creates a hero called Titan, but it backfires when Titan becomes a villain. A super battle ensues and MEGAMIND defeats Titan. He then accepts his role as Metro City's new hero. The villain became the hero, saved the day, and fell in love.
It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas. There comes a time every year in which we are all filled with merriment and cheer. Typically, there are colorful lights, lit-up lawn decoration, presents, an ornate tree, and time with loved ones. You got it, folks. We are totally talking about Christmas, the holiday that everyone loves, right? After all, it's not called the most wonderful time of the year for nothing. Well, there is someone out there who didn't like Christmas at all, Mr. Grinch, who is as cuddly as an eel and pretty darn mean. The original concept of the Grinch came from a Dr. Seuss book called How the Grinch Stole Christmas. The book was of course adapted into a cartoon and then into a live-action film starring Jim Carrey. The Grinch's dislike of Christmas reached a point in which he decided to stop the holiday from coming altogether. On his journey to do so, he befriended a little girl named Cindy Lou Who. She was able to help him understand the deeper meaning of Christmas. He changes so much that not only does he love Christmas now, but his heart grows 3 sizes to make room for all the new friends.
Well, we have ways of making it talk.
Sid, Toy Story. The Toy Story film series took us back to a simpler time in our lives, especially for those of us that grew up with the films. One of the scariest villains, if you were a toy, was Andy's neighbor who tortured and experimented on toys by pulling them apart, reattaching them to other toys, or sending them off on rockets. But the toys taught him a lesson in the end by revealing they were alive. We'd like to think he behaved after that.
The toys are alive!
In Toy Story 3, it's widely believed that the garbage man we see is an adult Sid. He's wearing the same skull t-shirt. One Reddit user called London Garbage Man, who is a garbage man himself, says that there are tons of toys he has found. His theory suggests that Sid became a garbage man as a way to right his wrongs with toys by trying to save them. He picked a job where he could rescue them, and we know he is creative and capable of fixing toys. He's the only one we saw that knows the toys are alive. Wouldn't you try and save them if you were him? Plus, Sid doesn't seem to be suffering in the film. A beautiful theory, don't you think?
I've always wanted to put a spaceman into orbit.
Well, there you have it, friends. Those were some of the villains in animated movies that have flipped over to the good side. Which were your favorite? Are there any that we missed? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out more in our playlist. But before we get out of your hair, here is the answer to the emoji quiz. Did you get it right? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.